Alright, what is up YouTube? It is Psychedelic Scizor, and it has been a while. I feel like uploading again. I always enjoyed it, and I basically stopped because, since I last uploaded, I have managed to flunk out of college and then start a new job working as a electrical apprentice, going to be an electrician. So, overall, that was a stressful transition period, but I feel like I have very, very much stabilized. I am enjoying life right now. I'm in a much better position than I was months ago. And there's really not much more to go into it, really. Just dropped out of school, got a new job, I'm stable with that, so that's the catch-up. I don't think it's worth making a whole video over, but this video is catch-up for the NBL. I decided to start uploading about 2/3 of the way through the season, but I want to upload, I want something to upload, so here we are. What is the NBL? The NBL is the N Below League. It is a league that I formed, and I've actually run already for a season and a half. This is season 2 that we're starting on. I am the champion of season 1. It was not rigged whatsoever. I legitimately won it. But basically, if we're going to be uploading NBL, I wanted to catch up on what you missed, so you're not totally clueless. So, at the moment, as you can see kind of on the side here, I am 5-1 plus 14, so I'm doing very well. And I can even say my only loss was to Zedin week 1. It was 1-0 lost. At the moment, he is 5-0 plus 19. So, I think if I'm going to lose to anybody, he's the right person to lose to. I kind of figured that loss was coming. I beat him last season by bringing offensive Claydol, and it was fantastic, but I didn't have an offensive Claydol to bring versus him, so I blame that. But he also did another great season last year. He went 4-4, I think. Didn't even finish the last match, but that was a whole mess. We're not worried about it. But the NBL is much more organized now, and hopefully Season 3 is going to be big. Hint, hint, I am also not specifying details because I don't know what those details are. But I'm rambling. Let's get into it. Just general overview. As you can see, my draft is Omastar, Braviary, Emboar, Malamar, Uxie, Cryogonal, Lurantis, Floatzel, Levani, Granbull, Electrode, Alolan Persian, and that's actually it. So just kind of catch up on how my draft has evolved. Initially, this Lurantis was a Dusknoir, and I even brought it my first 2 weeks of the season. But I realized Dusknoir was very... Alright, before I actually go over the evolution of the team, I'm going to explain the whole gist of this team. I franchised Omastar, so it kind of was my first round pick, but not really. But I built this team around, I realized NU is not nearly as balanced as a lot of tiers above it, like in terms of having multiple counters to things. I realized that mons like Steelix and that hold the tier together, so I figured I would draft mons that have very few to no counters, and that explains my first 2 real picks being Braviary and Emboar. Emboar has no switch-ins, period, except for maybe Uxie, which I drafted. And Braviary, is only stopped by Steel or Rock types, which Omastar and Emboar deal with extremely well. And I gave Braviary Z Crystal so that I could use Phytinium Z to break through any Rock or Steel types that would try to stand in my way. Braviary is just super strong. Defiant is also nice for a pretty offensive team like I've got right now. Sheer Force is also useful in more niche situations, but Defiance can be used more often than not. And Keen Eye is never going to get used, period, ever, end of story. Emboar, already a great breaker. Omastar I did actually want to franchise from last season because, as you can see right now, it's not been brought a whole lot and it hasn't been brought offensive, which I am upset about, but it does have huge versatility to be a deadly setup sweeper, Shell Smash. It is so powerful. But also, just a Rock-type physical, Rocks and Spikes, Antique Spikes setter. Hazards are definitely hard to come by in this tier, or at least good hazards and hazard stack, so I figured Omastar was really one of the best because it pressures a lot of things that other spike stackers or toxic spike setters don't. So that's why I franchised that. Going down the line, Malamar, I made a Z user because for this season we actually are testing out Omni boosting Z moves, because it's banned in normal draft league, yes, but the more we thought about it, me and the other people running this league, there's not really many broken abusers of it in this tier. All of them either have very poor move pools, are defensive and wouldn't want to run a Z Crystal or it would be a waste, or have a quad weakness that are abusable. And I figured, yes, it would be very good for them to have it, but it wouldn't be broken. Some of the examples being Malamar's quad weakness to Bug, Charizard has a quad weakness to Rock. Other users like Vaporeon and Leafeon are either... Vaporeon is very defensive. Do you really want to waste a Z Crystal on your Vaporeon? And mons like, Flareon and Leafeon do not have the move pools to really abuse it that hard. So I figured they would be good, but they would not be broken, and at least thus far, we've not officially decided, but thus far, it's looking like that theory is holding up. No Omni-Z user has run rampant. As you see, Malamar has actually only been brought once. It will be brought later in the season, that's all I'm going to say. I don't know what week, and actually I do, I'm just not telling you, but... it is surprising that I haven't used it as much, actually. That did kind of surprise me. Uxie is the glue of this team, because Uxie is so fat. You can bring it every single week, and it will get up Stealth Rocks. Period. End of story. And that's even more true in NU, that doesn't have nearly as many hard breakers to destroy it. And so yeah, it's only gone 1 in 5, but that's exactly what I want it to do. I don't bring it to be offensive. I bring it to come in, set up Stealth Rocks, U-turn, and die. So Uxie's done a fantastic job so far. Cryogonal I picked up as a reliable rapid spin with good recovery and great Spadef. I am so surprised it's gone 10-0. We'll go over what it did specifically and when we go over the replays. I'm not going to play every replay, but I am going to at least go over generally what happened just as a season catch-up. And then next is the Lurantis slot. This was originally Dusk Noir. I wanted a spin blocker, and I wanted a spin blocker, and it was very bulky and had good coverage, and I thought it would be good. But I realized that all that on paper, it's extremely underwhelming in actual play. Its base HP is so low that it really takes away from any actual bulk it had when you combine it without any reliable recovery. And base 100 attack isn't good when your only reliable stab is like base 40 power Shadow Sneak. So basically having almost no stab is irritating. So I ended up dropping it and picking up Lurantis because my team struggled very much with electric types at the time. And so having a specially defensive grass type, or well, it could be either defensive, but having a grass type, it would be very helpful for this team. And it does give me another defogger as well, so Lurantis has so far been a good pick. Next was Floatzel. Floatzel has a great speed tier for NU at base 115, one of the fastest mons out there, at least in this tier, I should say. And its stats haven't shown it, but it is very useful as a revenge killer and just generally deterring certain fast, frail things. It also can set up on bulky water types that I like because it does resist Scald and it has Water Veil, so it can't be burned. So that is rather nice. I do like Floatzel for that. Leavanny, I drafted Sticky Webs because Braviary plus Emboar plus Sticky Webs is horrifying. And other than that, Leavanny was my grass type of the team at that point before I drafted Lurantis, and I realized Leavanny can't be run defensively. I mean, it can, but it's not going to be run defensively. Next spot is, this spot has shuffled around a lot. This slot of Grand Bowl and the very last slot of Persian, at the beginning of the season, was Stoutland and Hippopotas for Sand Rush core, but I kind of realized fairly quickly that that while normal spam is kind of a viable strategy, you do hear about it, this was not a good normal spam core because Braviary and Stoutland have the same speed tier at base 80, and Stoutland does not break anything that Braviary can't break on its own. Usually you do normal spam to complement each other, like a Diggersby and a Mega Lopunny. Lopunny kills faster threats for Diggersby. Diggersby is able to break bulkier threats that Lopunny wouldn't. They complement each other. Whereas with Braviary and Stoutland, they just overlapped, and Stoutland was never the better option for me, so I only brought it once, and then I dropped it. So then that spot went to Skuntank, because it was just a great mon available. I picked it up. I loved using it the little bit that I did, but I did then, on top of that, after having it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks actually, trade it for Granbull, because in this team did not have an answer to fighting types that could beat Uxie. So basically, if they had strong knockoffs like Hariyama, for example, yeah, fighting types that could beat Uxie, and bug types if I didn't bring Omastar. I just didn't have Switch. Well, I had Emboar, but Granbull is a mon that I do really like, so I was willing to pick it up. Very strong offensive presence for a defensive Pokemon. But it just gave my team a little more flexibility with what I bring. I don't automatically have to bring Uxie because there's a fighting type. I don't automatically have to bring Omastar because there's a bug type. Or even really normal types. My team doesn't handle that super well. But that explains that slot. That's changed around quite a bit. Electrode hasn't been brought yet, but I wanted an electric type on the team. I wanted it late. I didn't want to draft it early because no electric types in this tier, I think, are good enough to draft that early. At least off the top of my head, I don't think. And that speed tier is at least really nice in prep, as it forces a lot of Scarfers to have to suddenly ramp their speed way up from just outspeeding Floatzel to outspeeding Electrode, and that is extremely nice to have in prep. And then, like I said, the Alolan Persian slot was originally Hippopotas, but Sand just didn't work out because you needed to bring Stoutland for Hippopotas to be viable at all, and it was never worth bringing Stoutland, therefore it was never worth bringing Hippopotas. So I dropped it, picked up Alolan Persian, and now I have Parting Shot to give safe switch-ins to Braviary and Emboar and Omastar and Malamar, and it is just... it's scary. I do like this team a whole lot. It does function very simply. As you can see, I have brought Braviary, Emboar, and Uxie a ton, along with typically filling out some form of Cryogonal, Floatzel, or Omastar. But it's worked out really well. Like I said, 5-1 plus 14. That's great. So this recording is already 13 minutes, so this won't be, giant. Let's just get into the replays and go over this a little bit. Week 1 versus Eden. This is our only loss. This was an extremely close game. There were some cool sets on both sides. I had a Shell Smash Omastar. I had a Scarf Braviary. I had a defensive Assault Vest Emboar to handle his Virizion, which, might I add, Virizion right now through 5 matches is 16-1. He has been an absolute monster with Virizion. It's so offensively variable. It's fantastic. I had a specially defensive, I believe, actually Assault Vest, Dusk Noir, Fizdev Uxie to set up rocks, and then I also had a defensive Stoutland here because otherwise his Golurk that he had on his team completely destroyed me. Choppleberry defensive Stoutland actually stopped that very well with Intimidate. Meanwhile, though, his team already looks pretty good on paper, but he did bring a bunch of stuff I didn't expected. He brought Damp Rock Electros so that he could use Swift Swim Quillfish, which actually put in some good work on my team. Against my team, I should say. That was a really cool set. He had, it was at least Flame Charge Silvally Fire. It may have even been SD. I don't even remember if he gets that. But anyway, I do know that his Silvally was setting up on me, and it was kind of scary. And then he actually had Scarf Virizion. which I'll actually get into that after a quick mention. It was beat up Sneasel to help beat Colberberry Uxie, which I was. But anyway, having Scarf Virizion was such a good bring versus my team because it outsped everything, including Stoutland in the Sand and Omastar after a Shell Smash. And it came down to a 1-0 of I had to call whether he was Scarf or not, and I kind of thought he wasn't Scarf, so I ended up setting up with my Omastar, it getting revenge killed, and then Braviary was at too low health to survive a close combat, and Scarf Braviary was also outsped and knocked out, and I lost 1-0. But that was such a fun game with such good sets on both sides. I loved this match to death, and I was very okay with losing this because I felt like it was such a high-level battle. I can't even be upset. And this is week 2 versus who was this versus actually? Week 2 versus Slime. This was also a very close game. I think the differential was +2. Yeah, +2. No. Alright, and I brought basically just a Spadef, kind of a standard Cryogonal. It was like Recover, Freeze Dry, Toxic, and Flash Cannon. The goal of the game actually was, or one of the main goals of the game was to win with Cryogonal because he only had a few ways to break it. On this team, the only thing that could kill Cryogonal was Alolan Sandslash. So the goal was if I beat Alolan Sandslash, I can stall out the rest of his team and beat it 1v1. I also had a bulk up, like Iapapa Berry or whatever 50% berry. No, it wasn't that. It was Chesto Resto, bulk up, Floatzel, which had Waterfall and Crunch, and the idea was to set up on his bulky waters in Gastrodon and Jellicent and beat him that way. And I got a little greedy in setting up early, and I ended up losing it without even killing Gastrodon. Gastrodon was weak enough to be revenge killed immediately after, but that still set didn't work out like I wanted. I don't remember what my Omastar was. I think I was Spikes. I don't remember what it was. It clearly was not important to this game, though, as I think it went down early, and usually if that happens, it was Spikes. And that just makes sense, because his team had a bunch of bulky waters that I had no way of breaking. I think I was Spikes, Omastar. Oh, yeah, because I was a physically defensive set to handle Alolan Sandslash the best I could. I also had a Fizdef Uxie, set up rocks, Spadef, kind of offensive, Dusknoir, it didn't do a whole lot, and then Scarf Braviary. And basically, this game came down to mind games between Scarf Braviary and Scarf Alolan Sandslash, because he knew that he needed to keep it alive in order to kill Cryogonal, and I was slowly running out of switch-ins, and in the end, I ended up getting the superpower play right, because he had Jellicent and Alolan Sandslash alive in the back, so I had to be really careful with my predictions, and after clicking Brave Word a couple times, or U-turn, I finally got the superpower play right and knocked out his Sandslash, and from there, Cryogonal was able to stall out, and that's how I got 3 of its kills. Next we have Week 3 versus Rolio. This was actually made up kind of late because he was a replacement for somebody. But this is switch sides, but you can see it. This is the first week I brought Lurantis. I had Scarf, Emboar, Sub-Bulk Up Braviary, Fizdef Uxie with T-Bolt for the Minior, Banded or Expert Belt, one of the two, Floatzel, basically just for that powerful Aqua Jet versus Minior. Omastar, I believe, was also Shell Smash, but it didn't do anything this game, if I remember correctly. And then Lurantis was kind of just a general Spadef Sponge, if I remember correctly. It ended up taking some hits that I needed to. But this game kind of came down to him getting greedy a little bit and setting up with Minior kind of early, and T-Bolt on Uxie combined with Rocky Helmet on Uxie was able to wear him down enough to put him easily in range of Floatzel's Aqua Jet. So that was revenge killed rather early, and it kind of just came down to every time Embor came in, it got a kill. And he brought Screen's Meowstick, actually, which was nice. And I called him bringing it because he loves that set. So I ended up running Brick Break over Superpower on Embor. So I completely nullified his screens for stuff like Offensive Lapras and Chinchino. So that was really good bring. And that was a 3-0 win. Yeah, 3-0. Week 4, we have versus Duke. Duke's got a really cool team. He's got a Zisa Viper, so that's really cool. He brought Trick Room versus me, which was really scary. He actually has a very good Trick Room team. Clam Pearl is also very strong with a Deep Sea Tooth, and Scrafty kind of just has no switch-ins on my team. This was another match that basically, once I removed the Scrafty, his entire team could not break Cryogonal, and I ended up stalling it out. Even Regice, I mean, that's a complete toxic kill because it's taking nothing from Ice Beam or Flash Cannon. But ended up basically stalling the game out with Cryogonal. If I'm being honest, I don't remember enough about the game. It's no particularly important or amazing stuff going on. Although we did get to see Zisa Viper in action, so that was pretty nice. So another 3-0 win. We got a 3-0 forfeit win week 5 versus Arctic. I really wish I would have got to play him. I love playing Arctic. We played him several times, and it's just a nice little rivalry we have going on. But unfortunately, he was just busy with finals and school. And then finally, we have the most recent week 6 versus Justin. It was a 4-0 win for me, as you could see. But this was a fun game. This one saw Cryogonal go off. I brought offensive Cryogonal, and as you see, his team doesn't particularly have switch-ins to Cryogonal except for Hariyama, which I tried to pressure as heavily as I could. He did apparently have a Spexy Molga in the back, though, which probably would have swept me if I didn't keep Cryogonal alive. I remember my Skuntank ended up getting critted by Guzzlord and going down. I was so worried about how I was going to have switch-ins to anything. But Malamar finally came, and Malamar didn't do anything. It sat in the back. And Cryogonal also kind of just went off. All I needed was Ice Beam, and then I had Water Pulse for Piloswine and the Magmortar. And that's all I needed. Cryogonal just went off this game. It was fantastic. Yeah, Recover, Ice Beam, no, Freeze Dry. Recover, Freeze Dry, Water Pulse, and Toxic. Either Toxic or I had Ice Beam. I actually think I ran Dual Ice. I think I ran Freeze Dry just for the Samurott, but I wanted the damage output of Ice Beam, and I had Toxic on enough other members. Plus, I didn't want to spam Toxic versus a Guts Hariyama, which my team has no switch-ins to. So that was pretty nice. So overall, that is the season recap. We're currently in second place in the league. Top 4 teams make it into the playoffs. We've got 3 weeks left. Jax and Sky are my next 2 opponents, and they are both also in playoffs right now. If it were to end today, it's seeds 4 and 3 respectively. And then opposite is not out of playoff contention. He is 2 and 3, and seeing as Jax is 3 and 2 as the final slot, he very easily could slide in there by the end of the season. So we've done pretty well so far to get ourselves in a good position, but we do need to finish out strong to make playoffs. But overall, I definitely feel like I've got the right team to do it. This team, I think, is significantly better than the team I drafted, because I found out that Sand was useless, and I replaced that with 2 very useful members in Granbull and Persian that actually cover my weaknesses very well and support my team very well. And then just generally, Lurantis is a much better mixed defensive kind of offensive sponge than Dusknoir is. I can live without a spin blocker because I'm honestly okay with my opponent's rapid spinning versus me because that just gives me free switch-ins to my breakers. This team isn't hyper offense that sets up constantly. This is just straight breakers. They don't need to set up. Braviary and Embor can destroy at neutral, so this team doesn't necessarily need to set up, so that's nice. And that is the catch-up so far. And, well, that actually didn't last as long as I thought, about 25 minutes. I'm excited, so here we go again. I haven't done this in a while. If you like what the Oakland A's Elves are doing, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and just do what you do with the YouTube videos. I'm going to get on out of here and see you guys later.